We're ready to begin today our new SOAP series. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Summer's here and we want to shift things a little bit. You know, we have an opportunity. There's natural breaks in our worlds. New Year's is a break in our world. The Christmas holidays are a break in our world. Spring break is literally a break in our world if you have kids. And summertime is a break in our world. Most of us plan vacations. We try to find the best paradise we know that we can afford to go to and find an opportunity to relax and withdraw from our everyday life, that we might get recharged and re-enter our worlds with a new vigor for living, with a new excitement on the inside of us. And I want to encourage you today, I want to challenge you today to open your mind and open your heart this Sunday, that you would understand that what God has for you is bigger than what maybe your expectation is this morning. And I want to raise your level of awareness today of what God has for you, who He is, and what He promises for your life. Because the truth is that most of us don't wake up on Sunday morning thinking, man, how can I change my world today? Let alone, how can I change the world today? Most of us don't wake up with this excitement and enthusiasm to take life by the horns and make it our own, to make our lives mirror the movies. So that when we watch movies, we're bored because our lives look so much better than those moments. Most of us watch the latest romantic comedy and wish our relationships could look like that. Most of us watch Hacksaw Ridge and think, man, I know it's a true story, but I don't know that God would ever have anything like that for me to do. That kind of courage, that kind of confidence to be who God's calling me to be. But I want us to take a step back from what we believe about ourselves this morning and step into what God believes about us this morning. Because I believe that God meets us in our imagination. God says that we're to be people of faith, right? Speaking what is not as though it were. Seeing what is not as though it were. And the only place we can do that is in our imagination. The only place we can see things that are not as though they are in our imagination. So the question is, what do you imagine about yourself today? What do you imagine that God sees for you today? We've got to begin there, because we can't go where God has for us to go unless we first believe that God has for us to go there. That's what faith is. But modern day faith has shifted things around a little bit. And I hear it as a pastor all the time. They say, well, I'm praying for the opportunity to go. And when the finances line up and when all the blessings line up, when the favor is there, well, then I'll step. But I don't see that anywhere in the Bible. I don't see anywhere where it says, well, if God gives me all the provision, then I'll get the vision. No. The Word of God says that we get a vision that we begin to walk before the provision comes into our world. That's what faith is. And I want to shift you this morning. I want to shift me this morning. I always preach to myself. It's summertime. You know, Sunny and I, our favorite thing is to find a place. Our goal, a lot of people like to go to the beach, and the beach is great. A lot of people like to go to like amusement parks. Amusement parks are great. Some people like to go up and hike and exert themselves on their vacations. I'm not in that zone yet, but I'm working on it. And they like to do that kind of stuff. Some people like to go to big cities and go shopping and need to find restaurants, and that's good. But for me and my family, we find the best pool we can find, and we sit there for a week and we do absolutely nothing. And that's what we love to do. I mean, it's great if the pool is by an ocean. It's great if the pool has a waitress that walks around. It's great if there's good food and good shopping nearby. But our best life is to sit by the pool. And I was in Arizona last week. It was 120 degrees by the pool. That's like the oven temperature for some slow roasted pork barbecue. 120. I felt like slow roasted pork barbecue in my beach chair. I just lathering up with oil. It was like I had this, Hawaiian tropic with thyme and basil scents, and I felt like the big turkey in the middle of the. I looked as white as the frozen turkey when I went out to begin with. Now I've got a little base coat. But you lay out by the pool, and it's our favorite thing to do, but when you're in 120 degree weather or when you're in 120% humidity, either way, you're going to get hot. And the beauty of laying out by the pool versus laying out on your back deck or laying out and reading a book in the middle of, I don't know, downtown, the beauty is that there's a pool right there, right? So you've got this ability to get refreshed in the middle of the day. So we go out and we slather up. There's some people that have like the spray lotion, you know those guys? And you see them, and I'm too much of an assurance person. They get the little spray out and they go, and they walk through it, and like now they're protected from the sun. I would be like a bright red tomato if I did that. I've got to get like the full lotion on my skin, and it's got to get so white that I've got to rub for 20 minutes to get it into my skin. Otherwise, I'm going to burn. I use 50 SPF. My wife uses like 15. Kim uses 2. She uses that like coconut oil. She's like, coconut oil is good for everything. She just slathers it on and goes out in the sun. I'm going to be the tannest person you know. Everybody's got differences, but everybody that lives out by the pool gets hot. And when you get hot, what do you want to do? You want to go get in that pool to refresh yourself. But the thing is about getting in the pool after you've been laying out all day is your body skin temperature is now like 180 degrees, right? You're literally roasting in the sun. And when you go, especially right now, especially early mid-June when the pool is just fresh, when it's just open, it hasn't gotten hot and it's still cool at night, you get ready to go in that pool and man, there's a moment. And the first moment's kind of okay. It's kind of like, okay, well, that's some cool water. But from your ankles forward, every joint that you submerge in that water is like electricity going through your body, right? You're like, I want to cool off, but if I'm going to do this thing, when I go to the next step, it's like every muscle from that knee joint up is as flexed as it can be just because of the cold going through your body. And if you'll get to the end that you'll be refreshed, but getting to refreshing isn't easy. And this is what Sunny does. This is Sunny's idea of refresh because she's really into it. She's like, I'm good. And she goes back in, she sits back down again. Can I get a Coke Zero? And then she gets another Coke Zero and she's like, this is the only way. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to do this. If you go to the pool with Jim Crumbly, he's not going to ever put his foot in the water. He's going to go full tilt, dive into the water. He's not going to do a cannonball or a jackknife. He's just going to do some kind of crazy maneuver into the water, and he's going to feel refreshed within seconds. We all know that we're going to get refreshed. We all know if we can get into the pool that we're going to feel better after having laid out in the sun. The question is do we have what it takes to get refreshed? Do we have what it takes to get to that point? We know that it will be refreshed. We can imagine that we'll be refreshed. It doesn't take faith to know that it's going to be refreshed, but there's a difference between knowing about it and getting in the pool. And it's tough to get in the pool. Every part of your body, when you put a new part in, every part of your body screams. If Sunny does get in the pool, sometimes she'll get into her waist at like the 3-foot mark. And then what happens? Like everybody that splashes in the pool and the wave comes and hits you in the belly, it's like, through your tiptoes, and you're living on your tiptoes because you don't want every part of your body that touches it. It's like, your whole body screams to get away. But I got to get in. I got to submerge and get refreshed if I'm going to stay at the pool all day long. And I want to tell you, faith is just like that. Your walk with God can be the true testimony of someone who's walking with Jesus is that they've discovered new life, and it's a life more abundant. And we shouldn't ever settle for anything less than that bar. Because Jesus came to the earth and he was crucified that we might have this life. And if the life was just like, hey, it's a normal life with a little positive twist to it. Like, you just think happier thoughts than most people. I don't think Jesus would die for that. If he was willing to die that we might receive this new life, it's going to be a life that's different. It's going to be a life that's so much better than what we would normally live that it's worth dying for. And we can make a decision for Jesus, but we've also got to make a decision to follow Jesus. Making a decision for Jesus is like saying, I know the pool feels good, but following Jesus, when we do this thing right, it's like taking every step into that water and getting refreshed piece by piece by piece, because our whole body is at that point. When we're immersed in the water, our whole body is transformed. It doesn't just make you feel physically better, mentally, you're at a better place when you get refreshed at the swimming pool. There's just a whole nother level of understanding. And I don't want you to leave today thinking that the bar is down here or down here. The bar is so high. God's thoughts, God's dreams, God's plans for your life are so far above the plans that you have. That Proverbs 16 says, a man makes a plan, but the Lord orders his steps. Because I believe that our plans fall far short of anything God dreams about us. Let me show you this verse from Deuteronomy chapter 30, or this section of verses from Deuteronomy chapter 30. And Deuteronomy 30 is at the very end of the books of Moses, and it's at the end of the Israelites' desert experience. They've been wandering the desert for years and years, and they're about to go into the promised land. Okay? And this is kind of God's last encouragement to the people of Israel before they go into the promised land. Now they're going into the promised land no matter what. But this is what God tells the people just before they go. So imagine you've lived your whole life in a desert and you're about to go into this new land that's overflowing with blessing. The Bible says overflowing with milk and honey, but the truth is it's just more in every way. They're going to have an opportunity to live in paradise by comparison. And so they're about to step into this land, and God says this. Deuteronomy 30, starting in verse 11, says this. It says, this command I'm giving you today is not too difficult for you to understand, and it is not beyond your reach. It is not kept in heaven, so distant that you must ask, who will go up to heaven and bring it down so we can hear it and obey? It's not kept beyond the sea, so far away that you must ask, who will cross the sea and bring it to us so we can hear it and obey? No, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and in your hearts so that you can obey it. Now listen, today I am giving you a choice between life and death, between prosperity and disaster. For I command you this day to love the Lord your God and keep his commands, decrees, and regulations by walking in his ways. If you do this, you will live and multiply, and the Lord your God will bless you and the land you're about to enter and occupy. But if your hearts turn away and you refuse to listen, and if you are drawn away to serve and worship other gods, then I warn you now that you will certainly be destroyed. You will not live a long, good life in the land you're crossing the Jordan to occupy. Today, I have given you the choice between life and death, between blessing and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you would choose life so that you and your descendants might live. There's a dramatic phrasing that God uses here to contrast what life is like with him and what life is like without him. And he says here to these Israelites, he says, it's not too far away. It's not like you've got to reach out and obtain the blessing. It's right there on your hearts. It's right there on your lips. It's available to you right now. You see, the promise had already been given to this nation. God had already said he would take them into the promised land. They were already the inheritors of the blessing. It wasn't like they had to reach far out to get it. God had already placed the blessing on their hearts. It was already a privilege they had a right to receive. But the privilege they had a right to receive came with a responsibility. The rewards from the relationship required the relationship. The blessing from being with God required them to be with God. It wasn't rules and regulations alone. It was love the Lord your God. And the rules and regulations were in following God's ways, which are putting him first in everything that you do. These people, these chosen people, are about to step in to a promised land that the blessings, the level of they can't possibly imagine what they've been given. But they now have an opportunity because they've been given the right to take the responsibility to possess the land God has for them. And that's what I want for you and I today, to understand that today we have a privilege, we have a right to receive blessing from God. The Bible says in John 1, verse 12, it says, and to all those who would receive Jesus, he's given the right to be called children of God. If you receive him, then we've been given the right. There's no earning, there's no test to take, there's no box to check, there's no journey to go on. You don't have to go across the ocean. It's right there on your lips and in your hearts. But there's a difference between deciding for Jesus and following him. And today I want to take you into those waters. I want to take you into the waters of following God, because I'm telling you, every time you take a step into that water, it's going to be like electricity going through your body. Everything around you is going to scream at you to turn back the other way. Everything in the world that's surrounding you will not believe for you. All the provision will not be set up before you get to the vision. The life God's asking you to live, the life he's calling you to, is a life of faith, walking before we believe. You know, I heard this story about Walt Disney. Walt Disney died in 1966, and Disney World in Orlando opened in 1971. So he died before he could see what he had created. And they said at the opening, his wife was there with a bunch of officials cutting the ribbon, boom, cut. And one of the officials turned to Walt Disney's wife and said, isn't it a shame that Walt wasn't here to see this today? And she said, Walt's already seen it. If he hadn't seen it, we wouldn't be here today. You've got to have the vision that precedes the provision. We've got to get an idea in our mind that all that we have is not all that God has for us. We can't settle today and wake up in the morning thinking, okay, it's another day. No. It's another day. We've got an opportunity now that our lives might reflect all the glory that God died that you might receive. We look to movies and think, man, how could our lives ever look like that? And I'm telling you, if we live the lives God's calling us to live, then we'll flip that on its head. And when you begin to watch movies, you'll begin to think, man, I'm so glad my life doesn't look like that. I'm so glad my marriage looks like this. There's a new understanding. There's a new way to live, and it doesn't look like the old ways. Do you remember what happened in Numbers 13 when they were about to go into this promised land the first time? When the Israelites were ready to go, God was ready to give it to them. They were ready to go, and Moses sent 12 spies out into the land, and they're going to land. They come back, and he said, what's the report? And 10 of the spies said, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too, like they were just going to crush us. Yes, it's overflowing with milk and honey, but there's no way we could ever do that. And 2 of the spies came back and said, what are you talking about? If God is with us, who could be against us? Yes, they're giants, but they're helpless prey in our eyes because we're not looking from our own perspective. We're looking from God's perspective. And it's not about what I'm able to do. It's about what God is able to do in my life that matters. If he's for me, who can be against me? But all the Israelites followed the 10. 2 had a good report, but the country turned on the 10. 2 believed in God, but the rest of the world, for their perspective, turned on the 10. And they remained in the desert for years and years and years. Because if the report of your life is going to come from the 10, then we'll never move. We'll never step into God's promises for us. So let me just give you 2 points today. The first thing is privilege. You have a privilege. In John 1, it says, to all who receive him, they are given the right to become children of God. He is my Father. He is your Father. He is, as the great prayer says, our Father who is in heaven. You have a right to receive all that God has for you today. You don't have to think, man, I hope I'm good enough. Man, I hope I've earned this. No. Today it's for you. Today you have the opportunity to walk into the blessing that God has already given you. You just have to get up and believe that today can be different. You have to get up and believe that God is God. You have to get up and believe that he favors you, that he wants to be with you, that he wants to bless you, and not that he wants you to live another day like everybody else in the world. Don't be one of the 10, be one of the 2. You and your family, be one of the two. They all saw the same circumstance, but 2 had a different confession. They all saw the same circumstance, but 10 believed what they could do, 2 believed what God could do. I don't want you to believe today what you can do. I want you to believe what God can do. As we see the Israelites on the edge of this promised land, we can turn to Matthew 17, and we can see the same thing with Jesus. Jesus is in the middle of his ministry, and it says he takes Peter, James, and John and goes up to the mountain. He's done this before. I mean, he always does this. He's about ministering, but he knows ultimately that the most important relationship he has is with the Father. So you'll see Jesus all throughout the Gospels retreating into prayer. It says Jesus withdrew into a quiet place to pray, to commune with his Father, because he had his priorities in order. So Peter, James, and John go with him, and it's just a normal prayer journey. We're just going up to the mountain to pray. And so they go up to the mountain to pray, and they get up to the top, and all of a sudden, Jesus is transformed into this new being. He's transformed into this spiritual being. And Elijah and Moses show up on the mountaintop. And walking with Jesus, not just a decision to follow Jesus, but following Jesus takes them to the place they never thought they would be. Takes them to an experience of God they can't comprehend. And they're trying to go through all their Sunday school experience, all their sermons they've ever heard, and go, how do we respond to this? What are we to do in this moment, this life-defining moment? We've experienced the presence of God. Do we like stack up an altar? Do we build some tents? What do you want us to do, Jesus? How do we respond to this thing? And at that moment, a voice cries out and says, this is my son in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And it says at that moment, all 3, Peter, James, and John, hit the floor. They didn't go, hey guys, I guess you're the voice of God, so let's take a knee. You know, I learned this in high school football when the coach is talking, just take a knee, let's just hang out. Tim Chuck taught me, take a knee, I'm taking a knee. They didn't say, oh, maybe we should get on our knees before God in humility and respect, and maybe we should just bow our heads and fold our hands like we were taught in Sunday school to do. It says that they just had an instinctual response when confronted with the power and the glory of God to fall on their face before him. That's how they responded, because they literally were overwhelmed by the experience. Is that your experience? Are you overwhelmed? And not every moment maybe, but do you have moments where you allow yourself to be overwhelmed by the power and the presence of God in your life today? Because we can't just read the Bible and think that God's giving us good stories about someone else. God's explaining to us how to live our lives in large part, how he wants us to respond to relationship with him. The Bible is the story of God's efforts to reclaim his creation. And he's telling us, when we experience his presence like he designed us to experience it, we'll be overwhelmed in every sense, just like you're walking into that pool. He wants you to pull the Jim Crumbly. He wants you to go for the full dive. He wants you to experience at every moment the complete immersion in his presence. And if you will, you'll find yourself refreshed like never before. But what I find, for me, is it's difficult. You know, Joe Hellick gets up here almost every week behind this keyboard, and I promise you, not every week does she feel like worshiping at 9:30 and 11:15. Not every week is her heart already turned towards heaven, where she's going, I can't think of anything else I'd want to do right now but worship, so my heart is overflowing to worship. No. She has to take herself there some Sundays when everything's gone wrong in practice and Corey hasn't had breakfast and things are just falling apart on the stage. She has to take herself and go, I know what the world is calling me to do. I know what my circumstances say, but I know that at this moment, I need to worship. So I'm going to take myself to the place where I can experience the presence of God. And I guarantee you, every Sunday by the end of the 4th song, she's there. But it takes an intentional shift. We can't just, this is like the halftime show. You're all sitting down. You're not living out the Christian life in this place. It's just like you're coming in here. The coach is inspiring you, encouraging you to get back out there and take the ground. Come on, score, touchdown, go, rah, rah, rah. Get a basket, LeBron, come on. Be the man. We've got to shift our perspective on privilege. You have a privilege and a right to receive all that God has for you. The Bible says in Jesus, we can go to the throne boldly and ask. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do is ask today. The second thing I want you to do is take your responsibility seriously. The privilege is making a decision for Jesus. The responsibility is actually following him. Your responsibility to Jesus. What's your responsibility? I don't know what you can do today, but I know it's enough. I don't know what you feel like you have available to you. I don't know how much you feel like you know, how good you feel like you can pray, but I know it's enough. Because God's not requiring words, God's requiring heart. God's not requiring right actions, he's requiring right motives. If you can just get in your spirit today that God desires great things for you, and then to begin to walk before you see those things come to pass in your world. If you can walk in faith, then I promise you, the presence of God will begin to manifest in your life like you're getting into that pool. The world won't believe for you. Every time you take a step, every time you move, you're moving in the opposite direction the rest of the world is going. It says that the path that leads to this life is a small path, and not many find it. And when you find it, every step you take will be like that cold water. It'll be like electricity through your body. It'll be refreshing, but man, it'll be such a different experience than you've ever had. Every bit of your body, every bit of your family, every bit of your friends will tell you, turn back. Man, it's okay to go to church, but don't be one of those crazy people. It's okay to don't give them everything. When you put your kids in that place and your kids want to stay home from church and you say, kids, come on, let's go to church. I don't want to go to church today. You're going to church today. Come on, because the church is the place where we find blessing. The church is the place where we find hope. You speak the church up to your children. You don't say, oh man, well, I know it hadn't been good. I know that Jeff's on that message. It wasn't that good last week, but don't worry. I know that there's those people and those people are there. No. It's all, hey, I know you have a million opportunities in your world, but the best thing you can do is commit your life to God. The best thing you can do is get back to church. Don't talk bad about the church to your kids. Well, okay, that's easy, Jeff. I'll give the church to my kids, but I don't know if I want to give my marriage to the church. I don't know if I want to submit my relationship to God. I don't know if I want to get that foot in the water. Come on, just get that foot in the water. You got to get your whole self in this thing. Well, what does God know about engineering? How's God going to help me in my job? He created all the engineering that ever was. He created every math principle, every formula, every principle that ever existed. If you don't believe that God can help you with engineering, you believe a little bit too little about God. He knows a heck of a lot more about how the world was created than you do. Get into engineering with God. Pray that God will give you the words of wisdom to deal with your boss because he understands psychology better than Freud ever could. Give God permission in your world to move and to act and to go where you never thought you could go before, but you only dreamed of, because God will meet you in that place. He'll meet you in that imagination. He'll meet you in that dream when you commit your dreams to God. If you commit your life to him, there's nothing he will hold back from you. Everybody in this room right now is just one good decision away from a God-soaked life. Every person in this room is only one decision away from a God-soaked life. There's no test to take. There's no bar to meet. The Bible says it doesn't matter what you've done or where you've been or what's happened in your world thus far. Any decision you've made to this point, it's all about your responsibility right now. Whether you've been a Christian for 100 years or you've never been a Christian in your life, whether this is the first time you've been in church or you've memorized all the scriptures, it doesn't matter. It's your responsibility right now to make a decision. I'm not just going to believe. I'm going to follow. I'm not going to believe that God designed me to live in this place for the rest of my life. But instead, I'm going to take time to dream. And as I read the word, as I pray, as I join a connect group, as I start serving with people around the church, as I look for opportunities to grow my faith, I'm going to begin to ask and dream and believe that all the good things that are possible with God are possible for me. And then before I see any of it come to pass, I'm going to begin to walk, believing that if I make a decision for him, he'll bless it every time. If I make a decision for God, he'll be there every time. It's not always about making the right choice. Paul tried to go to Macedonia. He got turned around. It's not always about making the right decision. It's about having the right motive. Jared Gay's praying for a promotion at Chick-fil-A. He's not praying for a promotion and then just sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. He's praying for promotion, and before he sees that promotion come to pass, he's declaring it in faith in front of the whole church. Before he sees it come to pass, he's taking on new responsibilities at his job. Before he comes to pass, he's speaking it as though it already was. And I don't know, maybe Jared will get this promotion, maybe he won't, but either way, Jared's going to continue to believe that God's going to bring the promotion in due time, at the perfect time, so that every moment of his life will be the plan and the purpose of God in his world. You're just one decision away, one good decision away from refreshing, from brand new life in Jesus.